Hello and welcome to Mind, Body, Sleep, the podcast for anyone out there who wants to understand and recover from insomnia using a holistic perspective. I'm Beth Kendall, your host. Let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. Today, I am so glad to be doing another hope story because these are definitely the most listened to podcast episodes, and it's always such an honor to be able to sit down with someone that I've had the opportunity to work with and talk about them and their story. So today, Rick is joining us. A big hello and welcome to you, Rick.
Hello. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks so much for coming on because I know you've already had a full work day today and you're probably starving because you didn't have a lot of time between getting home and hopping on the call.
No, yeah, I didn't eat lunch today, but that's kind of normal at work. So I'll usually eat dinner around like 5:30 and then and then hang out until I go to bed.
Okay, well, perfect. Okay, so let's just start kind of how I always start, if you wouldn't mind, just taking us back and telling us a little bit about how insomnia started for you and what that was like.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember it started end of April, early May of last year. I got sick.
Yeah.
Just like a normal, your average head cold. And I remember like one night, and whenever I was sick, what I would do back in the day was just take a ton of NyQuil and just pass out. And I remember like I would sleep great. And I remember for whatever reason that night, I kept waking up. And it was like I was snoring myself awake. I'm like, this is weird. Like, okay, what's going on here? And it kept waking up. Felt like I didn't get any sleep. Yeah. Go to the doctor. And, she's like, hey, like your blood pressure is a little high. And so then that's one more thing building on the anxiety. I'm like, oh, that's weird. Okay. And I like went home that night, got some good sleep, and then went back to work. And I remember it was a Friday, and I got home from work, or I got home from hanging out with my buddies that Friday, and same thing. I kept like, that was more pronounced. Like I kept every 10 minutes, it felt like snoring myself awake. And like, I remember it was like at some point 4 a.m, and I think I had what was like a panic attack. I've always been kind of, an anxious person, or what do I call, my mom called me a worry wart. But I remember legit having like a feeling like I was going to throw up, and I'm like sweating and just freaking out. I'm like, why can't I fall asleep? Like, what is happening here? Like, what is going on? So freaked out, ended up calling my mom at like 6:30. She's like, hey, what's going on? I kind of told her what happened. And she's like, okay, well, like, how are you feeling now? I'm like, better, but still kind of like, that was really weird. And she's like, well, hey, like, take it easy today, kind of relax if you can, and just see what happens tonight. Maybe it's the cold affecting you. I'm like, okay. So then that night I passed out pretty hard. I was like, okay, cool. I'm cured. We're good to go here. Yeah. And then the next day it just stuck in my brain. I remember. And I was just kind of on edge all day. And then sure enough, that night, get ready to go to bed, and it felt like I didn't sleep all night. And I was like, oh man, that was Sunday going into Monday. So I go into work Monday just like a zombie. My boss is like, you all right? I'm like, yeah, I couldn't sleep last night. And so then it's even more my brain. And then I go home that night, don't sleep that night. I'm like, what is happening? Like, this is insane. And then I think the next couple nights slept, I think because my body was just so tired, slept, and it just kind of be that pattern. And then it turned from like the snoring keeping me awake to I just felt like I wasn't going to sleep at all. And I would just lie there and just the stress, and I'd sweat. And I'm like, what is happening? Like, what is going on here? Yeah. And it just keeps getting like more and more ingrained in your brain. And then now I started feeling like anxious, like all the time. So first thing, like, it's so funny because I feel like you hear this across the board. First thing I do, go to the doctor. Yeah. Yeah. Like you do. You're like, oh my God.
Of course.
To the doctor, they can fix anything. What is wrong with me? Yeah. So I go there, and she's like, yeah, your blood pressure's a little high. You got this, you got that. But I'm not going to really write you anything for sleeping. You should get a sleep study done. I'm a bigger guy, so definitely should get a sleep study done, this, that, and the other. I'm like, okay. and then it's just persisting. And there's some nights I'd sleep, but I would wake up and feel like I didn't sleep at all, even though I'd got, 6, 7 hours. I would just be so on edge the next day, and it was miserable.
Yeah. Let me ask, I can't remember, was prior to then, it was like early 2024, you said?
Yeah.
So was snoring in the picture at all prior to that?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like I knew I snored, and I'd snore myself awake from time to time. Like, especially if I was sleeping on my back, I'd wake myself up.
Yeah.
But like anything, like it wasn't in my brain. I didn't think of it. I was just like, okay,
Exactly.
and then just roll over, and I was fine.
Yeah.
But now all of a sudden it's wormed itself into your brain. And I noticed leading up to this, I had started kind of waking up at sometime between 2:30 and 3:15 in the morning.
Yeah.
And it's like anything, the more you pay attention to it, the more it kind of sticks around. Yeah. And I was like, that's really weird. I need to like try to fix that. Wrong
exactly.
answer.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is like, okay, so now you're moving into the medical model. You're going to the doctor, which of course we all do. Yep. And then the whole thing starts with the sleep studies and all of that. And this is when the relationship with sleep really starts to change. Okay. So what happened? So how did it go after that?
So of course it takes forever to get a sleep study. So finally I get, I go in, I see the doctor, and it's a renowned institute out here in Scottsdale. Yeah. Nothing but really high marks. So I go in, I talk to the doctor, and he's like, okay, we're going to do a sleep study. I'm like, but hey, like, I obviously have sleep apnea. I'm going to accept that, but like, why can't I fall asleep? And he's like, well, we'll put you on a CPAP and you'll fall asleep. And I'm like, I don't think you're understanding what I'm saying here. Yeah. And, to their credit, like, they don't understand, right? Mm-hmm. And they're looking at the medical side of things. Right. And he's like, no, once we get you your CPAP and your sleep study, you'll be fine. I'm like, okay, sure. All right. Hopefully this fixes it. Yeah. So they give me the at-home sleep study. I take that, give it, you have horrible sleep apnea. Here you go. Here's your new CPAP and your mask, which, I joked, I called it my fighter pilot mask because it covered my nose and my mouth. Yeah. And so like now on top of somebody who already can't sleep, you're going to add this to the mix. And if I move the wrong way, it breaks the seal and it's leaking air and just miserable. And I remember like at this time, like we always have, family vacations on 4th of July at my parents' house. And I go out there and my mom's like, I feel my mom's like, what is wrong with you? And I'm telling her this. And, she's like, well, can you just try to relax? I'm like, no, I can't try to relax. Like, all I can think about is how I can't sleep. Yeah. And it just makes everything worse. And it was weird for me because I just remember being at work was almost a reprieve because I would be distracted there. But on the drive home, I'd start getting the feeling, the pit of my stomach, and just getting worked up. And like what had once been my like sanctuary of, chill at my house was now like, felt like a prison. And then, I'd sit on my couch, barely eat dinner because I was just so racked with anxiety. Yeah. And then as it got dark and then closer to bedtime, the anxiety would get worse. Yeah. And I'd get in my bed and I would just start the cold sweats. And I would be like, well, maybe I'll sleep tonight. Maybe I won't. And it was absolutely miserable.
So you knew it wasn't sleep apnea. What did you think was going on at this time? Or was that part of what was so scary?
That was the scariest part. So then at that time, like at work, I'm starting to struggle. And I have my two bosses, Lex and Kendra, are fantastic. I love working for them. So they're trying to get me help through the police department. And a great support structure. So I'm talking to them and they look at my past and they're like, oh my God, like, you have some mild post-traumatic stress. You probably have anxiety, this, that. And so I get into therapy, start talking to a therapist. Then she sends me to a psychiatrist. He evaluates me and he's like, everyone says like, yeah, you probably looks like you have some generalized anxiety, maybe a little post-traumatic stress in there. And I'm like, okay, like, that makes sense. And they're like, you're not sleeping because you have anxiety, which is kind of true. Yeah. But it's, it's anxiety
not
about
the
sleep.
Full picture. Yeah.
Yeah. Not the full picture. So I'm like, okay, well, I I just have to get rid of this anxiety. So I'm determined and I'm meditating every day and I'm
Yeah.
going on walks and I'm doing this because in my mind, if I get rid of this anxiety and push it out the door, my sleep will come right back. And it, as we all know, does not work that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I would do the worst thing too, like horrible. Like I'd be Googling everything, going on Reddit, like right out of
Yeah.
the gate. I cut out coffee. I
Yeah.
cut out this. I cut out that. I took this supplement. I didn't take that vitamin and going down that rabbit hole.
Oh yeah, that's all of us, it's kind of like the low-hanging fruit, it's kind of what you hear everywhere and it's, and then when that doesn't really help, you're really nervous and scared and probably really wondering what in the hell is going on.
Yeah, because my entire life, I was always a light sleeper. I'd wake up really easily, but a great sleeper. Like I could fall asleep at the
Yeah.
drop of a hat.
Yeah.
And if I wanted to, I mean, I could sleep until, 10, 11, sometimes noon, depending on how tired I was.
Yeah.
So to all of a sudden have it like I couldn't fall asleep, like everyone says, like I felt like my brain was broken.
Yep. Yep. And you know what, Rick, that's not unusual for it to come on like that, where somebody just never has an experience like that. And it can be just a single sleepless night, and it's so understandable. So by now it's probably what, summertime? And you're seeing,
We were in late August and
okay. Wow. So you're going all summer with this. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just on top of that, the heat out here in Arizona just makes everything even more unbearable. So I'm just a hot, anxious, sweaty mess who hasn't slept at all.
Yeah.
And just
super fun. Super fun.
Great good times. And then you start doing the thing that I find typical for a lot of people is you stop going out with your friends, you stop doing stuff because you read everything and this is the stimulus and that's the stimulus and that's going to keep you awake and this is going to keep you awake and you're just like, oh my God, like don't look at your phone, don't watch TV, don't do this, don't do that. And you're trying all these things and it's just making everything worse. I feel like the only thing I didn't do was CBTI because kind of reading it, I'm like, oh my God, like you're going to tell me like, how am I supposed to time how long I've been in bed? I'm going to be looking at my clock every 20 minutes. Like there's no way that's going to work for me. So at least I knew that was not going to be a route for me.
Yeah, I'm so glad. I'm so glad you had that, inner voice to say, you just even by reading it, recognizing that wouldn't be a good fit.
Yeah, I was like, this is going to be a disaster if I do this.
Yeah, yeah. So I remember, there's so many things that come along with this experience, and there's so many ways your life gets like more and more limited, just like you said, like your world can get smaller and smaller because everything kind of becomes this landmine, and I remember when we were talking and I asked you, what was the hardest part, and you said it was the loneliness. Does that still feel true?
Oh, absolutely. And that's why like I try to hop on the mentorship whenever I can and talk to people, because I just remember that because none of my friends experienced this.
Yeah.
None of my family had experienced this. And it's just, as you sit there in your bed at 2:45 in the morning, just racked with anxiousness and wondering why you can't sleep, you feel so alone.
Yeah.
And it sucked. Like it was awful. I've been through some intense things in my life and I came out the other side. I'm like, all right, okay. But this like brought me to my knees. And I remember talking to my bosses at work, just crying because you don't know what's wrong with you and you seemingly can't fix this. And it just came so out of the blue and it was brutal.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. I think a lot of people listening will completely relate to that. And I know I do as well. So what finally brought you into this approach? I know that you were at the sleep coach school initially, and then you found your way to the mentorship. So you already had such a good foundation coming in. How did you even find it? Was it just
of all places, Reddit?
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah,
well, there's sometimes Reddit,
yes.
It's Reddit to the rescue every once in a while.
And I found it on Reddit.
Yeah.
And I was like, huh. And it was a guy that I think had been through the sleep coach school.
Yeah.
And he was like, hey, like, this is what it is.
Yeah.
And you definitely recognize some things. And you're like, huh. And then I remember, so like I kind of took a picture of that screenshot of that. I'm like, all right, I'll look into that later. And then I remember seeing something, I forget how, like it was through my Google searching, and it was this guy, and it was like it's this blog of some random guy, and he's like, so your sleep issues aren't because of that cup of coffee you had. Your
Yeah.
sleep issues isn't because you watch TV too late. Your sleep issue isn't because of this. Your sleep issue isn't because of that. Your sleep issue is because you're anxious about sleep. And I was like,
Oh,
that kind of jives with what, and so I ended up joining the sleep coach school. And I was like, okay, cool. And it sounded so weird. Like, what do you mean, like hyper arousal? And what are you
yeah.
talking about? Like, what?
I was wondering if it like for you, if it resonated right away, or were you a little bit skeptical, or was it like, no, this makes total sense, or
Definitely a little skeptical.
yeah.
Like, because you're like, what are you talking about? Like, I have to unlearn being afraid of. It just didn't make
Yeah.
sense to my analytical brain. And then of course I do the wrong thing and watch as many videos. They unlock everything unlocks every week, but I
Yeah.
just watch the video as fast as I can, like
Yeah.
thinking the watching the video that's going to fix everything,
Yeah. Yeah.
and doing that, and then would be in their I think it's Slack, in their Slack channel,
Yeah.
but kind of being standoffish at first because you're not like okay, we'll see, and not
Yeah.
believe in it, and
Yeah.
going through that and talking to people, and you're like, wow. And you just see, while we are all like, insomnia is, what is this saying? Like,
Like you're unique, but your insomnia
insomnia
isn't.
isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
you see kind of the same thing across the board. And there's subtle differences, like what triggers people, what doesn't, like, what each people, I feel like we all have a thing we fixate on.
Yep.
And I was like, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. All right. All right. And it started to make more sense.
Yeah.
And my sleep incrementally got better. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
well, there you go. That's a bonus. Like,
Yeah.
things aren't good, necessarily
Yeah.
great, but things are slightly better.
Yeah.
All right. Like, progress.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always nice when you can get that little bit of evidence. And, I think this is the good part about community is that when you read other people's experience and you really see yourself in it and you're like, wait a minute, like it isn't just me, and I'm not completely alone in this. And there are actually a lot of other people that, have very, very similar trajectory with insomnia. That can be a really good part of community.
Yeah, because then suddenly for me, even those people are all over the globe, basically,
Yep.
I didn't feel so alone.
Yes. Yes.
And sometimes just going on and posting like what you're experiencing, just having a place to talk about it,
Yep.
and people listen and empathize with you,
Yeah.
let alone like offering up like advice and, hey, look at this. It felt better. So like I stopped feeling as isolated as I had felt, in the worst of things.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so glad.
Yeah.
And,
it was a great feeling.
yeah, it is. And, one of the things I love about the mentorship is just having people in all different stages of the recovery process, because, people that are further down the road can share their perspective from where they're at. And it also is helpful to see people newer coming in, because you can see the previous version of yourself in and it's, that also helps you further along. So that's great. And then how did you find me? Was it just through Sleep Coach School?
I think I'd seen something about you on there, and then you started
Yeah.
popping into my Instagram feed, and I was
Okay.
like, oh, interesting. Okay. And I started following you on Instagram, and I was like, oh, I want to check out her podcast.
Yeah.
And I started like at episode 1, you talked about like where it all started from you. And I don't know, it's just a very calming vibe I got from listening to your podcast.
Yeah.
And like, I definitely I got all the material from the Sleep Coach School, but I feel like I rushed through it to like, how fast can I consume this content and fix myself? And, trying to get from point A to point B as fast as possible and be done with this whole thing.
Yeah.
And then I remember like reaching out to you on Instagram, hey, shoot me an email, and kind of asking about your mentorship. And I remember one thing was like, and I'm reading your blog, and the thing that fascinated me was the neuroplasticity. And you're like, oh, like, because you find that you've forged these pathways in your brain, and that's why it's acting the way it is, but you can also change it.
Yes.
And that really interests me. And at the same time, a buddy of mine who was in the military. Like he was in recovery programs for post-traumatic, a bunch of different things. And he too was talking about like the program he was in was a lot of neuroplasticity. And so I'm like, there's something to this.
Hmm.
So I remember kind of emailing you and asking you about what the mentorship was like, and you kind of telling me, and I was like, okay, cool. Like I'm gonna do this because this is what I've been looking for. Like this is some good vibes to it. And I
Yeah.
remember saying, I'm like, I want to be active as much as I can.
Yeah.
I want to learn as much as I can, but not try to rush through it and just kind of like
Yes.
as much as you can with Insomnia, enjoy the ride.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. And, I mean, like I said, you kind of came in with the education, but like being able, oh, and I wanted to bring that up in our podcast because I remember you talking about your process and how you went through the mentorship. And yes, the neuroplasticity aspect to this, I find to be such a hopeful angle, and it hasn't even really
Yep.
the science of neuroplasticity really hasn't even been around that long. I think it was just in the 50s. We just still thought, your brain was just fixed and you had what you had and you couldn't change or unlearn anything. And which really doesn't make any sense because,
No, makes zero
I
sense.
mean, how did we even really think that?
Yeah, right?
So yeah, it was definitely, my whole world, my thesis was all about that for a couple of years. And I lived in that. And I still to this day feel like there's a feeling in my body that I get when I think about this aspect of being human. So I'm so glad that resonated. And okay, so you're in the mentorship and you're taking your time this time and you're
Yeah.
actually even enjoying the process a little
Yes.
bit, gasp,
Yeah, right.
what can you share with us about your recovery journey, which of course is, almost always very up and down for everyone, but what were some of the struggles that you had and some of the understandings that maybe helped you through them?
Big struggle I had was being kind to yourself. Self-kindness was just tough after having like a rough night of sleep, not being like, because of my, I think most of us, it's so similar, like these over analytical brains, which
Mm-hmm.
in many aspects of your life are so beneficial to us,
Yeah.
but in dealing with insomnia are your worst enemy
Yeah.
because you just could not stop thinking about sleep. And so for me, it was just practicing like being kind to myself and then having patience and understanding like this was going to be a bumpy road. It
Yeah.
is not a linear progression. I start here and I end here, and it's going to take this many months and I'll be cured. And
Yeah.
so just like for me, I would just try to, I don't know, like make baby steps each day, try
Mm-hmm.
to get, and then you can't even say try to get, because I feel like when you start saying, I'm going to try to do this, I'm going to do that. Like, and the wild thing is like dealing with insomnia is like, it's the opposite. It's just kind of letting it be. And that's what
Yeah.
fixes it, not forcing, like, I'm going to be better at sleeping. It doesn't work that way.
Yes. Well said. That's a very, very key thing that you just mentioned right there.
But just trying to be more accepting, I guess,
Yeah.
each day of where I was at. And, and it was, I remember taking a step back at one point in like March and looking back, I'm like, wow, like I've still got a ways to go, but look how far I've come. Like,
Yeah.
and just kind of being cognizant of that.
Yeah. Yeah, the process is so interesting because it sneaks up on you. I mean, so often I'm working with people and they're like, "Oh, I'm not getting better. I'm still, but then I'll do just what you said is think back to 6 months ago or a year ago, and that's how they can see how far they've come."
Yeah. And that's, you just kind of got to look at that. And it's
Hmm.
so hard just to take it one day at a time though, because all you want is just to sleep well and
Yeah.
feel better and not be anxious, especially those early days where, I mean, I'd get up in the morning and shower to go to work feeling like I hadn't slept at all, when in reality I know I had slept at least a little bit, but I'd be shaking in the shower just from the anxiety of everything, and it was a lot.
Yeah. And how did recovery start showing up first for you then, do you think? Would you say?
For me, like one of the big things was that last year we went to training, and I didn't know how I was going to make it through this training at work, and I did, and I was like, okay, cool, so I can do this. Like, all right, and then just I remember what was so confusing to me is like there'd be nights where I slept well, I'd wake up feeling anxious, but then there'd be nights where I didn't sleep well, and
Hmm.
I would wake up feeling calm, and I'm like, huh. So it's not all tied to how well I do sleep.
Yeah.
And then I think too, like learning how resilient you are and
Yeah.
how you can function and sometimes even thrive despite lack of sleep.
Yeah.
And it's not fun and it's not easy,
Yeah.
but you can still do it and be like, okay, like I can handle this. It sucks and it's awful. And then, there's some days where you hit by a pretty gnarly speed bump or and you feel like you're back at square one, but realizing like, no, you're not back at square one. It just kind of feels that way.
Yeah. For sure. I think your brain will just tell you that
Yeah.
automatically. You just almost have to assume it's just gonna come, say all those things. And that's
Hmm.
really pretty normal. Pretty normal. Yeah. And did you notice like your reactions starting to change if you did have a bad night, less freak out mode, maybe?
Yes, absolutely. And like one thing I started to do, like, so I remember finally at some point, like when I think I was in that training and the first night we got there, we were in Arkansas for training, didn't sleep well at all. And
Yeah.
I remember I was with my two coworkers and like, we're going to get coffee. And at that point, coffee was so taboo. Oh, it'd make me not sleep. And I'm like, I'm just going to have a coffee. And I just remember kind of like almost a calming effect. And so finally I was like, yeah, I'm just going to live my life. And like, this sucks,
Yeah.
but I'm going to live my life in, like if I had a bad night's sleep, like, hey, maybe I'll get an extra shot of espresso in there, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and really help myself out. And it
Yeah.
was so funny because like those nights or those days where I'd have extra caffeine or drink too much caffeine because I just didn't care. I was like, whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen. And then wow, you end up sleeping pretty well that night, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, this is so weird.
I love that about your coffee is life's too short to give up the coffee.
Oh, 100%. That was like one of the worst mistakes I made was not drinking coffee for months.
I
I
know
was
you're
like,
already
why did I do
suffering.
this to myself?
I know, and it really has nothing to do with the coffee, and
Nothing.
you're already suffering, and then to take away your coffee, it's just brutal.
Yeah. And I just remember too, like it was the coffee and then realizing that I could watch TV in bed and it wouldn't give me insomnia.
Yeah.
And once I kind of doing that and basically living your life again, as hard as it is,
Yeah.
it's, step by step, day by day. For me, the sleep improved first. So then I was left with a lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
And it was a mix of anxiety. I think like I said, I'm glad I went to therapy for anxiety, but a lot of it was anxiety related to sleep. And then slowly that started to dissipate. I
Yeah.
wouldn't be as anxious or I would, I could kind of calm down before bed. And I was like, huh. And, slowly but slowly thinking less about sleep. So, I mean, I'm sure it was the same for you, just day after day, just all consuming, like,
Hmm. Yeah.
at work, something would be fine. And then I would think, oh my God, how am I going to sleep tonight? Well, if I don't sleep well tonight, how am I going to sleep tomorrow? I'm on
Yeah.
call tomorrow, so I got to sleep well tonight. And just, it was
Yeah.
crazy, like how much it can occupy your brain.
It consumed my whole life. I mean, it was just every single thought or decision or everything I did in life was put through that filter of, but how is this going to affect my sleep?
Oh,
And now it's like I just don't ever think that anymore. And I think that is more meaningful to me than better sleep, to be honest.
yes.
Being free of
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. The free of the worry, because
Yeah.
you just, and whatever happens, happens. And I think, one thing that you and Richard, that's great is like sometimes a bad night's sleep is just a bad night's sleep.
Yeah.
Like I think back, like, before, especially like when I had something stressful going on the next day, like, yeah, I would sleep terribly, waking up all the time, tossing and turning. But like, then, through insomnia, you just get so hyper focused on that. And the more you focus on it, the worse you make it. And it's such a weird thing that you just have to sit there and not be at peace, but just sit there with your insomnia and your anxiety, in the middle of the night and tell yourself, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm safe. And it's the one thing with this, like I had never talked to myself before, at
Uh,
least externally. I talked to myself on the inside, but like I'd sit there in bed and be like, you're going to be fine.
yeah.
You're okay. You're safe. And just reassure myself. And
Yeah.
weirdly enough, you do it enough times and it starts to work.
Yeah. Your brain starts believing you. It's like, okay, maybe he really is okay.
Yeah, maybe there's
Maybe I
something.
can let
Maybe there's
down the
something to
guard
this.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's just such a, and I remember like, listening to your podcast and you just think about it. Yeah. Like for as evolved as we are, our brain is still an animal brain, and
exactly. Yeah.
something has triggered the alarm and your brain can't stop focusing on it because it's so, worried by this thing, and puts you in guard mode. And that's why you can't sleep.
Yes. I mean, we are consciously so much further ahead than the unconscious, lizard brain in this
Hmm.
process. And, I always think you almost have to take the unconscious mind by the hand, like it's a small child, and just show it over and over that everything is okay. And really realize yourself, like, okay, this doesn't feel okay, but I actually looking around, I actually am okay.
Yeah.
And just working with your brain on it, and it will eventually get on board. It just takes time and repetition and a lot of patience.
A lot of
Yeah.
patience. And for me, it was interesting because my insomnia would like morph into different things. So it originally started with the snoring and not
Yes.
being able to fall
Yes.
asleep.
Yeah.
And then you kind of forget it. It kind of forgets about that. And it's like, well, what if I do this to him? And then you get all anxious about that.
Yep.
And then you kind of relax about that. And then it's like, what if I try that? Like there was a period of time like, so I've always been afraid of heights, never a big
Yeah.
fan. And I started having like these dreams about like, being on super high things or potentially falling off, and like I'd wake up and I'd be so freaked out and I couldn't fall back to sleep. And I'm like, what is happening?
Well,
Like,
that's a very interesting, like that is your mind trying to get your attention.
mm-hmm.
Isn't that
And
fascinating? Yeah.
it was wild.
Yeah.
And then I remember listening to your podcast and you're saying, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And so now I'm like, isn't that interesting that my brain is now doing this to me?
Yeah.
And it's just, I feel like it's basically like unpacking all the things with sleep that you're afraid of, and showing your brain that you're okay with all these things. Like, okay, I'm okay with snoring myself awake. I'm
Yeah.
okay with sitting in the bed and nodding off a bunch of times, but not falling into true sleep.
Yeah.
I'm okay sitting here and not sleeping at all tonight. I'm okay with waking up at 3 a.m. and not falling back asleep.
Yeah.
Just having to come to grips, having to talk to yourself and be like, it's going to be okay. Like, no matter what the night throws at me, my brain throws at me, I'll be okay and I'll be safe.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is how we show our brain. And it is acceptance is probably the secret weapon in all of this. And just understanding what is actually happening, and that it is just conditioned arousal
Mhm.
and a fear in the mind. And we can develop fears about so many things in life. And for us, it just happened to be around not sleeping. And, just going back a little bit, I wanted to mention how, for you, it's in progress started showing up in sleep first, but it can be the opposite. So where you still had anxiety showing up, but sleep was better. Sometimes the anxiety gets less or the fear comes down, but sleep kind of, comes later. But what I think is so great about what you shared is that it shows you that anxiety and hyperarousal doesn't have to be gone in order to sleep.
Oh, 100%. And I think one of my big nights with that was it'd been super stressful at work and I was really anxious, and I'm coming home from work late and I'm just all spun up with a bunch of things, and I'm like, there is no way I'm going to sleep tonight.
Yeah.
Like I was kind of okay. I'm like, it just is what it is. Like it's going to be a rough
Right.
night.
Yeah.
And I, get home, kick off my shoes, grab a shower real quick, hop into bed, turn the TV on, just anticipating like I'm going to be up all night, and I don't even think I got through like the credits of whatever show I was
Yeah.
watching.
Yeah.
And the next thing I know, my alarm's going off. I'm like, what just happened? I was like, and it's crazy. Yeah. Cause as anxious as I was still able to sleep.
Right.
But then I would occasionally have the opposite be true. Like I'd get into bed. I'm like, oh, what a great day. And just so relaxed and chilled out. But then I'd kind of nod off and my brain would start scanning. And I'm like, oh, cool. I don't feel anxious, but it's going to be one of those nights. And that's just a weird, frustrating thing dealing like your brain. Like you don't feel as anxious, but your brain is still in the back. It's still slightly on hyper alert mode. And it's like, oh, I don't know if it's quite safe to let you sleep yet.
Yeah. It's almost like I think isn't that interesting approach was so helpful for me because it just took me out of, because there isn't a lot of rhyme or reason in all of this. It is just very kind of messy and all over the map. And that's pretty standard. but trying to even like pin it to what you did or didn't do, or find the pattern or find the thing. And it's sort of like giving up all of that is the recovery process. Is just kind of just like, maybe I do, maybe I don't,
Yeah.
and giving up on all of the trying to figure it out. And that's what takes us out of the, out of the fight, out of the struggle, out of the figuring it out mode, basically.
Hmm. And
Yeah,
it's so hard because like that's
it
what my
is.
whole life has been
Exactly. That's
predicated
what
on,
makes
is
you so good
figuring
at
this
your
out.
job. Yeah, exactly.
It's
I
like,
know. Yeah, I know. I hear you. I hear you. And I was going to ask too, before I forget, when I did a post way back, it's been a while, about the best way to use the mentorship. And, as always, you so generously chimed in and talked about how you moved through it. And, since you talked about that, I've been so curious to hear how people use the mentorship and use the resources, because there's really no right way, and everyone takes
mhm.
different things from the program. But what was your process, and did it change at all over time?
Yes, it did. So like I said, when I first did the sleep coach school, it was, learn this, watch these videos as fast as possible. This
Yeah.
will fix my anxiety. And
Yeah.
then when I joined the mentorship, I was like, I really want to absorb this. So I limit myself. I would only watch one video a day. I would allow myself to watch it as many times as I wanted
Yeah.
to kind of like let it sink in. Sometimes I would just sit there and play it a couple times. And then, I would go on to the mentorship and ask questions.
Yeah.
And then what I would do, like, so every night I try to walk. I find like it just is, it's just good for me. Like,
Yeah.
it's not going to make me sleep. I learned that. Like, it will not
Yeah.
make me sleep. It won't take away my anxiety, but it's just something I'd like to do and just kind of like help, not even wind down, but just a good ending to my day. And the first part of my walks would always be I'd listen to one episode of your podcast. And I was like, I'm going to start at the beginning and then, go all the way up to present. And
Yeah.
then there would be certain episodes that would really kind of resonate with me. And I would mark those down and like, and it's very weird. Like I would do it. Like if I had a rough day, I'm like, all right, I'm going to go on my walk and I'd listen to one of your podcasts. And it, after a while, I felt like it just kind of like, okay, like this is all part of the process.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this is all part of the process. It's not fun. It's not necessarily short. It's not linear, but this is where we're at. And just kind of like listen to you talk and go over different parts, or even like sometimes I would be like, okay, this is what I'm experiencing right now. I'm in a speed bump. So I try to find speed bump episodes
Yeah.
and listen to that and be like, okay, I can't try to get out of this because that's not how this works. I have to be okay with being in this. And then eventually it'll kind of, work through it.
And now here you are on the podcast.
Yeah,
So you've come
right.
full circle. I love
I
that.
never thought that I'd be here. And then one thing I kind of promised myself was if I could ever get through this, I would be as helpful to other people as possible. Because we talked about it earlier, man, is it lonely.
Yes.
And, you see the people that just join up and you see what they're going through and you think back to those days and it's brutal. And I'm lucky that, I'm not, I'm not married, don't have kids. So all I had to worry about is myself. So people that are, worrying about their families and their kids and all this stuff, I'm like, man, I just had to worry about myself through this. And that was a mess unto itself, let alone having to raise kids, be in a partnership. Like, oof, that's a lot. So I just want to be there for people and kind of be like, hey, man, like there is hope. Like it's not going to be as quick as you want it to be, but there is hope.
Yes. And you have been so generous in the community. And, you're kind of one of those people that gets out of the fire and goes back to help. And it's just been such a wonderful thing to watch as a coach. And so how is life now? I remember when we talked that you said you love your weekends, and I, I
Hmm.
loved how
Yep.
much you love your weekends.
Yeah.
But, anything else that you want to share about how life
Yeah.
is now in general?
Life is pretty good. Work is stressful. I think that's just going to be par for the course
Yeah.
working at the police department. My weekends are great. It's wild, like how much has helped me in several aspects of my life. Like learning just to be okay with things, like and
Yeah.
sitting with things is like, a part of this too was tied to anxiety and learning like, hey, I'm just going to, I remember talking to my psychiatrist and he's like, Rick, I hate to tell you, but you're going to be anxious in your life. Like it's a human emotion. You
Yeah.
can't make that go away.
Yeah.
You just have to accept it. And, he was like, the harder you push it away, the more it's going to stick around.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, and it's interesting, like your latest episode about like insomnia coming back.
Yeah.
And necessarily for me, it's not, sometimes, I'll have a rough night's sleep, but sometimes it's really weird, like hearing a song or like seeing something that reminds me of when I was in the worst part of it. And like you can
Hmm.
feel those emotions come like rushing back. And like sometimes my hair will, my hair on my arms will stand up and I'll, or get cold sweats for a minute because you just think back on like your tough struggles and you have to talk to your brain like, hey, but that's where you see like those neural pathways that are formed. Like this
Yeah.
makes you think of this time, which just, heightens that, that stress and that anxiety. You're like, holy moly. And you really truly realize how strong your brain can be.
Yeah. And that might happen for a while. And I think, there is a bit of when you come out of something like this, it's processing some grief, it's
Oh, for
processing
sure.
like what you went through. And, that can take some time.
But I just remember thinking, like, through a lot of this, like you start identifying yourself as someone with insomnia, and like it can become your identity. And
Oh, for
it's,
sure. Yeah.
and like we talked about, like you literally focus your whole days on it, and it shouldn't be that way. Like that's what just makes it worse. And you kind of just have to like let it run its course, and it can be so hard, but slowly it goes away. Slowly you find yourself thinking about it less and less,
Yeah.
and it'll come back every once in a while and you think about it, and you feel those the heebie-jeebies, as I call them, and you're like, oh man. And
Yeah.
then even that, but you have to be okay with feeling those emotions.
Yeah.
And I just try to focus on showing myself, hey, you're okay, like, and it's
Yeah.
okay to feel anxious about thinking about insomnia. You'll be fine.
Yeah. It doesn't mean that anything has gone wrong. In fact, it's a part of the healing, it's a part of
Hmm.
the process.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so yeah, it's pretty good. Like, I don't know, like, and then one thing too is like learning not to going back to like thinking too much, like what was my sleep like I on my CPAP that I have, it will track how much
Oh, yeah.
how long I had it on for, and this that. I don't ever look at any of that stuff
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
purpose because I don't want to go back down. Like I still practice for the most part the timeless method. Like try to not check my phone after 10 o'clock.
Yep.
It's weird though, like, and it's so funny for me because everyone's different. Like if I fall asleep, I can now wake up in the middle of the night and I can look at my clock and be like, how much time do I have left,
Yeah.
and be okay.
Yeah.
And then like I'll put on it if I'm kind of struggling a bit, I'll put on a TV show and don't even often make it through the first episode. And then before I know it, my alarm's going off again. So I think it's a lot of progress there. And then also too, I don't know, I'm now 44 years old, and I talked to a lot of my buddies about this stuff because it's interesting to see like other people that have sleep issues, because we all do, but they don't let for them, it doesn't turn into insomnia.
Yeah.
They'll just be like, oh man, lately I've just been sleeping really terribly. And like, but they're not worried about it. And you're like, oh, well, it's good that you don't worry about it because that's a whole nother thing. And just
Yeah.
knowing like, as I've gotten older, like my sleep isn't going to be the same now as when I was, 20 years old. Like
Yeah.
like just I've changed I'm up way earlier now than I was when I was younger. So I'm never going to be able to sleep until 11 o'clock again. And that's okay. Like, as
Yeah.
long as I can get some good sleep, anytime I get really weary anytime I see like, oh, do these hacks to improve your sleep. And I'm like, oh boy, no,
Yeah.
thank you. And people really harping on getting 8+ hours. And it's like, no, that's not how that works.
No, I know that myth has caused so many problems. It's
Oh, yeah.
amazing, and no one even knows where the 8 hours came from. It's just kind
Right.
of pulled out of thin air.
Yeah. And I'll sleep like I probably sleep between each night 6 and around 7 hours.
Yeah.
And I feel better now than pre-insomnia when I was sleeping 8, 9, 10 hours. I think
Yeah.
through like just kind of peace of mind, the CPAP I'm sure helps, and just
Yeah.
not stressing about it. Like most days I wake up and there's that initial, like my alarm goes off at 5 every morning and I'm like, ugh. But by the time I'm out of the shower, I'm like, all right, let me get my coffee in and let's get after it. I'm feeling pretty good by then.
Yeah. Yeah. I often joke, I'm so indifferent to sleep now that I wonder, like, do I need to think about it a little bit more? Because, because I just don't, I don't know. I'm like, almost like, have I gone to the sleep optimization category of people? Like I actually have become one of those people that needs to optimize my sleep. I don't know. But I'm so happy for you, Rick. And, last question, and it's a bit
Yeah.
different than the silver lining question that I usually ask because you have been so generous of spirit. What would you say to someone with insomnia who is, still on the climb? What would you like them to know?
Keep hope. It's going to get better. Keep hope. And it's so tough in those dark hours of the morning. It is so hard. Like I would just sit there and cry or want to cry sometimes, but like keep hope and it will be better. And just trust in the process too, I guess.
Yeah.
Trust in the process because it will get you where you need to go. And yeah, that would be my advice to people.
Amazing. I love that. I can't thank you enough for sharing and just being so honest about your experience. And like I said, I'm so happy for you. And I am truly grateful that I had the chance to work with you.
Yeah, it's been awesome. This is probably one of the most life-changing things in my life.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool to come out the other side because it has an application kind of across the board in your life to just kind of learn to deal with super stressful and uncomfortable things. And I feel like my threshold for dealing with things through insomnia, which I think was awful, like has massively improved and it's made me better as a person.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. That's a cool little side benefit. But yeah, thank you so much. And just being there for people and teaching us this. It's so wild to me that like all these sleep doctors, like this is so not on their radar. And I don't understand how.
I know. And someday we'll get to look back. We'll say, well, we were at the leading edge of all of this. We knew that way back when.
At the forefront.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So well said. And for all of you out there listening, thanks a lot for being with us. And we will see you next time on the Mind, Body, Sleep podcast. Bye, Rick.
Bye. Have a good one.
You too.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here today. If you love what you heard on today's episode, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the podcast. And if you need more support with your sleep, join me in the Mind, Body, Sleep Mentorship. This 3-month one-on-one program will transform your relationship with sleep so you can get back to living the life that you love, free from the fear of not sleeping. Head on over to bethkendall.com for more details. I'll see you next time.